Record. And good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this another special episode here of Langerr at the Mic Live. And we're joined with a longtime friend of mine from York University who we spent one class together just talking football all the time instead of what was actually going on in lecture. This gentleman knows a lot more about football than I do. I hope I still know half as much as this guy. But anyway, we are joined by Mr. Mike Hrynyshyn. How's it going, Mike?
You know what? I'm going to give you a pass for butchering the last name. You came close. It's a lot closer than most do. It's Hrynyshyn, but it's all good. You knew me under a different name, so it's all good.
Exactly. I know you from Mike Spencer, so yeah. To be fair,
Yeah. All right, guys. So, yeah, again, thanks for having me on, Mike. Glad to be here to talk. I don't know how we ended up being friends because you're a diehard Dallas Cowboys fan. I'm a diehard Philadelphia Eagles fan. I have been since we were little kids. And I honestly don't know how we became such good friends. But, yeah, with quarantine, I have been watching football basically around the clock if I'm not actually at work. So I'm living my best life right now.
Fantastic. And to answer your question, I think that was because that was the year that the Cowboys were 4-12 and the Eagles were like 6-10. So it wasn't really that fierce of a rivalry. I mean, there was that game where with Chip Kelly and the Eagles just literally could not get anything going offensively. Each possession lasted about 14 seconds before punting, and that's it. Mm-hmm. And then there was the game where the Cowboys just with Matt Castle, is the one where Matt Castle ran in 3 circles and threw a pop fly at Des Bryant, just brought down, and then Sam Bradford just threw it wide open to Jordan Matthews and Xavier Wilcox. Sorry, not JJ Wilcox, just completely just took a terrible angle and Jordan Matthews took it to the end zone. That was just the highest point of the rivalry that year. So yeah, just to answer your question, we're both crap. And that's why we just talked college. We were both previewing the draft. So we were both looking at, we're going to draft in the upcoming 2016.
My most viewed YouTube video back when I did that was a rant on after the Eagles lost to Brandon Weeden about how Chip needed to be fired because it had gotten that bad. And sure enough, not only was I right, but then he failed miserably at his next job, and his job after that is going swimmingly awful, which as an Eagles fan warms the cockles of whatever pumps that black sludge through my veins.
Schadenfreude as we call it, right? So
pretty much.
But yeah, I just know that what was I gonna say? I don't mind talking with rival fans as long as they're smart, as long as we can have logical discussions. Because I'm sure that you hate talking to Cowboys fans that are just have the Cowboys blinders on and don't see what it is, right? And know that there are so many Eagles fans out there that just really we don't like to deal with, right? So I just honestly, whenever it comes to talking to a rival fan that's also smart, we can have a fun, logical discussion, rivalry discussion about our teams. I always welcome that opportunity.
Absolutely.
If we face each other in Week 16 again, I don't know if that will be the case, but anyway, let's get right into it. So
let's get into it.
We're going to funnel it down to our respective teams. So we're going to start just by talking about training camp in general right now. So let's start by talking about what teams do you think are being overhyped. So give me about 2 or 3 teams that you think are the most overhyped teams going into this possibly shortened 2020 NFL season.
I think you have to start with the Browns. I mean, they were overhyped last year. They didn't live up to it. Freddie Kitchens being the head coach was a terrible decision. I do like the idea of the concept of bringing in Kevin Stefanski. I think he's going to be a much better voice in that locker room. But this is really a year where if they don't make the playoffs, I mean, they may need to think about blowing it up because Baker, if they don't make it this year, if they don't make it to the playoffs or they don't even have a winning record, this is on Baker because that team is loaded. That defense has, Myles Garrett being the second or third highest paid defensive player in the league. Loaded defensive line. That secondary keeps getting stronger. They've added Greedy Williams, in last year's draft. They got Grant Delpit in this year's, draft. They have Jarvis Landry. They have Odell Beckham, 2-star running backs. How much is it finally going to be enough to get Baker to basically get pulled by the rest of the team? He's just got to do really the bare minimum. But with a lot of turnover, and obviously any of the teams that are bringing in a new head coach this year, they're already at a disadvantage due to the pandemic. So I think that's probably one of the ones where they're the most overhyped. I think the other one has to be the Packers. This was not really a great team. last year. They may have gone 13-3. They may have made it to the conference championship. They got absolutely trounced, and then their draft this year was pathetic. Jordan Love in round 1 really didn't make a lot of sense. I know he needs to sit, but it seemed like a waste of a pick. You desperately needed a wide receiver because Devontae Adams has been the only receiving threat you've had for the last 3 years, and you didn't draft one. Like, I think this is a case of the front office getting in the actual team's way, because they didn't address anything that's going to help them right away. They drafted another tight end. They have so many.
So I'm gonna jump in and kind of take a different approach than you're taking right now. I totally agree with you. But I would say the Browns aren't necessarily being overhyped. Last year, 100% overhyped. Yes. Cleveland Browns, 100%. But this year, I think that the Browns are just they're just, we know that they are still the Browns, that there's still a chance that they'll still be the Browns. It's not like we're pumping them to win the Super Bowl this year like we were last year. So I don't know if the Browns are going to be overhyped this year as they are last year. And with the Cleveland Browns, the way I see them is that they have 2 main issues right now, or 2 big question marks right now that I see. Number one is Baker Mayfield. We all know that, right? Because the roster, as we know, right, they're solid at almost every single position.
Yeah.
Offensive line was maybe their biggest weakness last year. Pretty sure they got a little bit better. They used their first-round pick on an offensive tackle this year, right? So the only issues is really the leadership and consistency of Baker Mayfield, and also the questions of whether head coach Kevin Stefanski is another first-year head coach that they hired. In my opinion, I'm happy that the Cowboys got Mike McCarthy, because I really think Mike McCarthy would have been perfect for Cleveland, an experienced, successful coach who's been in the league for a long time to bring stability to the organization, right? An organization that needs stability more than anything, right? And yeah, so I just think that that we need to see. You're absolutely right. This is the year make or break for the Cleveland Browns, but they're more of a hot seat team, not so much an overhyped team. And now the Green Bay Packers, exactly, and the Green Bay Packers, totally agree with you. Like, again, the draft that they had, like, I feel so bad for Green Bay Packers fans. I listed them as a team that is just trending downwards, and they're just. I mean, look, Aaron Rodgers could still be Aaron Rodgers, absolutely. Aaron Rodgers could still do Aaron Rodgers things, sure. But they're just really stirring the pot, and they're doing everything that they can to run him out of town, which is very unfortunate. And look, they're a team that, like you said, went 13-3, even though they could have. I think they're a bit of a fraudulent 13-3 team last year, as we all know it, right? But at the same time, just they're in a position to play to win, and they're creating everything. They're doing everything they can to not win, and to have a really rusty relationship with their franchise quarterback, and probably run him out of town within a year or two.
Which is unfortunate, because he's done so much, and that organization has done him no favors in the, 15 years he's been there now?
Yeah, I mean, you can argue – well, I mean, again, keep in mind they did win a Super Bowl 10 years ago, right, of course. But then again, a lot of people do say Aaron Rodgers, yeah, he's not – they question his leadership. They question his commitment at times, or his ability – yeah, just his leadership in general. But I don't think that it's warranted when, again, the franchise doesn't do anything to help him.
Exactly.
So, and just to give my 2 cents in terms of what I think the teams are being most overhyped, I would say the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I really do.
Oh yeah, that was an obvious one. I actually completely forgot about Tampa, because they're talking about, like, oh, they brought in LaShawn McCoy. LaShawn McCoy has been washed for 4 years now.
Well, LaShawn McCoy after Tom Brady and Gronk and all that, right? But for me, Tampa, if it wasn't for the New Orleans Saints and that division that they play in, sure, Tampa, list them as a conference and maybe, even a Super Bowl contender for this year. But because they're in the same division as the New Orleans Saints, they're not guaranteed anything. They're not guaranteed anything. They're guaranteed at least 1 loss against the Saints. That's what they're guaranteed. And then they still have to play Kansas City, right? They play the AFC West, right? So they still got to play the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. And they haven't proven anything as an organization since the John Gruden days, really. I think the last time they were in the playoffs, if I'm mistaken, I'm not mistaken, is against the New York Giants in 2007, if I'm not mistaken, right?
I think it's something like that. It's ridiculous.
So not to say that they'll go 6-10, but 10-6, 11-5, wild card. I have them as a wild card team. And that means they're going to play on the road. That means that even if they do get by the first matchup, they're going to have to go play in the Dome in New Orleans on the second on the division round, right? Or whoever else, right? They could also play in maybe in Minnesota, right? If Minnesota wins that division, and maybe if they are one of the top 2 seeds in the conference. And also, we do have to keep in mind the new playoff format. But again, I just think that the Bucks are one of the most overhyped teams going into this year.
Mm-hmm.
So now let's talk about teams that we think are going to be underhyped this year. What team do you think is not being talked about enough, and that will turn some heads going into this 2020 season?
I think that there's 2. I'm going to give you one from each conference. So I think in the NFC, you have to look at Atlanta. All right. I think people think Atlanta's just going to be like this terrible team that's going to be like 5-11 or, like 6-10, because they've had kind of, average seasons. But if you look at the offense, that offense is literally all first-round picks. And Todd Gurley is like, he's not what he was 2 years ago, but he's still a very serviceable back, and they still have weapons around Matt Ryan. Julio
There's
Jones
a lot
is
of
still there.
there's so much mystery with Todd Gurley, to be honest, just because of
There is.
I think it was like his knee and his health, right? And in LA, right? Like the fact that Sean McVay not using him as much as he should have. And then there's just so much mystery with Todd Gurley.
I think a lot of people also took out a lot of the frustration on those ugly uniforms that they're going to be rocking this year on the team. It's just, I hate those jerseys.
They look like LA Chargers jerseys, but anyway.
But yeah, like I think that they're still going to be really good. They could really fit into like that 9-10 win range, sneak into the playoffs. The NFC South is, there is a chance that Tampa completely blows up because Gronk's been away from the game for a year and a half. LaShawn McCoy is nothing. Ronald Jones is a bust. And then, hey, if Mike Evans or Chris Godwin gets hurt and Tom Brady shows signs of aging at 43 years old, it could blow up in their face, which he did. And if
he didn't have the weapons that he had last year, but
yeah.
Or he does have the weapons now, but still last year he wasn't the same quarterback, that he has been.
If it falls apart for Tampa, Atlanta sneaks into the playoffs. I think Atlanta may have a chance to sneak into the playoffs anyways. And then from the AFC, I would say the Texans. I know. They gave up all of their picks for Laremy Tunsil and then traded DeAndre Hopkins for absolutely nothing, but they still have Deshaun Watson. And I'm never going to count on a team that has Deshaun Watson.
I feel so bad for Deshaun Watson, man.
I do too. If I were him, I'd be asking to get traded. But
well, you know what?
I'll say this. Head coach Bill O'Brien is a lot better than general manager Bill O'Brien.
Yeah, sure. For sure. Absolutely. Look, they've been a winning team in the last 2 years. They've snuck into the playoffs with really, really bad quarterbacks, granted, in really bad divisions those years. But they found a way to make the playoffs and then just lose in the wild card round every year practically. But you, sir, are overlooking 2 teams, both in the AFC.
Go for it.
2 teams. Number 1, Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yep.
No one talks about the Pittsburgh Steelers. No one talks about the fact that they still have Mike Tomlin. I understand why people don't like Mike Tomlin. I really don't. Mike Tomlin is one of my favorite NFL head coaches in the league right now, even as a Cowboys fan, even as not liking the Pittsburgh Steelers because of the rivalries over from the 70s and all that. Mike Tomlin is one of my favorite NFL head coaches, and I would speak to Steelers fans in the last couple of years when they have been doing so good, and they don't like him for some. I don't understand why people don't like Mike Tomlin. I really don't. He's one of the best, one of the most likable coaches in the NFL. He fights for his players. His players love him as a result, right? And they just get the job done as an organization, on the field, off the field, right? And if Ben Roethlisberger plays a full season, 2018, they almost made it to the playoffs with a complete dysfunctional, with Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell, right? And Mike Tomlin dealt with it as best he can, because clearly John Gruden couldn't deal with it, and even Bill Belichick could barely deal with it, so he got rid of Antonio Brown, right? So look, the Steelers, if Ben Roethlisberger is healthy, right, all year, I mean, that's a big if, sure, but they're going to go back to being the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're going to go, they might not win the division because they played the Ravens, but they're good for a wild card spot. And then when you get into the playoffs with a veteran quarterback, with a veteran staff and team that knows how to win, right, as an organization, you never know. So Pittsburgh Steelers are my number one. Number two, Indianapolis Colts.
Oh, yeah.
Indianapolis Colts. Because, just I'm not saying Phillip Rivers is Andrew Luck, but they made noise last year with Jacoby Brissett at quarterback, playing a full year, when they didn't even know that Jacoby Brissett was going to be their quarterback going into that year, because Andrew Luck retired obviously in September or like right in the middle of training camp, right? So they went into Kansas City and won with Jacoby Brissett. And now they got better. They had you can correct me if I'm wrong. The Colts had one of the best drafts last year, right?
Oh yeah.
Definitely had one. Even though they didn't have a first round pick, they traded for DeForest Buckner, so that counts as a draft pick, you can say, right? They drafted another running back, one of the best running backs in the class, and when they already have Marlon Mack, they still have Darius Leonard. They still have Justin Houston, I think, right? Still have Justin Houston. Yeah. So
I checked. I think they did.
Yep. Then they have T.Y. Hilton. They have Michael Pittman. And they have Phillip Rivers throwing them the ball. And they still have one of the best offensive lines in the league. So Indianapolis Colts. And they have a solid coaching staff. I think Frank Reich is one of the better not young, but one of the better newer coaches in the NFL. So Indianapolis Colts, definitely my pick for being one of the most overlooked teams in the and they play in a wide open division. Who knows? Are the Titans going to be the same as they were last year? Are the Texans going to take a step back? Colts are my team, and the Steelers are my teams.
Yeah, I mean, those are two very good. This whole year is going to be a complete crapshoot, and continuity is going to be huge. So Pittsburgh definitely has a leg up in terms of the continuity. Whereas bringing Phillip Rivers into a new system, with players he's never played with before, that's going to be interesting to watch. It's just going to be, can he stay healthy?
Exactly. I want to segue that into our next discussion. So I want to talk about the reality of the situation surrounding the NFL right now, and COVID-19, and the fact that the NFL hasn't done as effective of a job containing COVID-19 compared to the NBA and the NHL. It'd probably be in the same lines as the MLB. And honestly, I don't even really think that the NFL can do the same thing that the NHL and NBA are doing, because if you're going to do a regular season and playoffs, that's a bit of a too long of a time to be in a bubble.
Yeah.
Training camp, season, and playoffs, that's a little bit too much. It's just playoffs you can. And especially if you have 80 guys on your roster right now going into training camp and all the moving parts of the logistics of an NFL season, I just think that the NFL has to just hope for the best at this point, and that's kind of what they're doing. But what I want to get to is that a bunch of players have obviously opted out. And I did have the list actually opened up here, but I'm going to pull it out here a sec. Yeah. But first of all, let's just be clear that NFL players have the right to opt out, and if that's what they want to do, they go ahead, protect your family,
Absolutely.
Protect yourselves, protect your loved ones, do what you got to do, but just do it before the Thursday deadline.
Yeah. And here's the thing, is that, like, this is different than what we see sometimes in around this year on any other given year, because normally when guys don't report to training camp, it's because they want a bigger contract, or they want more money, or they're holding out because my contract expires in 2 years, but I came off an all-pro season, or whatever the case. This is like there is a deadly pandemic going on right now. And some of these guys have family members that are, that are more susceptible to it, or they themselves may be. Like some of the guys that are playing out in Denver right now with sickle cell. There are already players that can't play in Denver due to the high altitude with sickle cell. You throw in COVID into this, and it just screws everything. This is dangerous, and I don't think I do not want to hear anyone go on about whether it's college and we'll get into that in a second, but whether it's college or the NFL, blaming any of these players for doing the right decision. hey, you got to protect you. You got to protect your family.
Exercising their right, not making the right decision, exercising their right as players in this situation right now. But what I just pulled out actually here is I got it on my phone because again I can't shift away from my computer because we're recording my screen right now. But anyway, here's I'll quickly run down the list of players that have opted out of the 2020 season on each team. There are quite a bit but I'll get through it quickly. So we have Arizona Cardinals have Marcus Gilbert, offensive tackle. Baltimore Ravens, Andre Smith and DeAnthony Thomas. And Bills have EJ Gaines, Star Latulele. I'll never pronounce that name right ever. Carolina Panthers, Christian Miller and Jordan Mack. Cincinnati Bengals, Isaiah Prince and Josh Tapu. Chicago Bears, Jordan Lucas, Eddie Goldman. Cleveland Browns, Colby Gossett, Andrew Billings, Drew Forbes, and Drake Dorbeck. Dallas Cowboys, Jameis Olawale, Stephen Goudry, and Morris Canady. Denver Broncos, you have Jaiwan Jones and Kyle Pico. Detroit Lions, John Atkins and Geronimo Allison. Packers, Devin Funchess. Texans, Eddie Vanderdoes. And Colts, Sky Moore. Chiefs, Damian Williams, and our homeboy, Laurent Duvernay-Tardif. Dr. Laurent Duvernay-Tardif. Las Vegas Raiders, Ukeme Eligwe, DJ Killings, Jeremiah Valoaga. And Rams, Chandler Brewer. Jaguars, Laurenti McCray and Al Woods. Dolphins, Albert Wilson, Alan Hearns. Michael Pierce on the Vikings. Patriots is going to be a handful here. Matt Lacoste, Marcus Lee, Patrick Chung, Dante Hightower, Brandon Bolden, Marcus Cannon, Danny Vitale, Najee Torin. Saints, Cole Wick, Jason Vanderlaan. Giants, Damari Scott, Nate Soldier. Jets, CJ Mosley, Leo Kolamatangi. Eagles, Marquise Goodwin. 49ers, Travis Benjamin. Seahawks, Chance Warmack. Tennessee Titans, Anthony McKinney. Washington football team, Josh Harvey Clemens, Caleb Brantley, and a free agent by the name of Larry Warford, who is also really good at playing offensive line. So, yes. Mr. Mike, what do you think who do you think is the most affected by these opt-outs? As let's
obviously
talk
the Patriots.
Football standpoint. Obviously the Patriots. I agree with you. Yes.
Five starters. I was listening to Matt Miller from Bleach Report today, and he was saying that when you think about the opt-outs, most players are playing football for two things. They want to get paid, and they want to have a ring. Dante Hightower, Patrick Chung, Brandon Bolden, Marcus Cannon, all have rings. All have a ton of money. So why risk it? You get the stipend, your contract gets extended another year, and you're able to sit out, make sure that you and your family are taken care of. Marcus Cannon's a cancer survivor, so he's definitely at risk during this. Like, these guys have nothing, left to prove. So why would you risk risk your long-term health? We don't know how long, how this is going to affect them.
I'm going to debate you on that because what the Patriots still have?
Go for it.
What do you think the Patriots still have? Yep,
Bill Belichick.
Bill Belichick, yeah. So Bill Belichick will go to Walmart and hire a bunch of cashiers to play offensive line and defense, and they'll be okay. Or
the only other one I could think of would be the Jets because CJ Mosley. That's the leader of their defense.
CJ Mosley.
And you're telling me in a week and a half they've traded Jamal Adams and they've now lost CJ Mosley? I mean, this wasn't going to be a team that was going to make the playoffs anyways. But we're talking about a team that could have competed, maybe been 5-11, 6-10, and now who knows? Like, the Jets are really bad on paper, and losing CJ Mosley, who got injured early last year and missed the whole season, this is huge for them.
Well, I would actually say, that the Packers with Devin Funchess. I mean, we know Devin Funchess isn't a high-end receiver. Mm-hmm. He's a veteran, stopgap type of receiver who's a good possession guy to have after you're a number one or number two, sure. But given the Green Bay Packers didn't do much to address their wide receiver core after Davante Adams in the draft, as you alluded to early in our show, I think that Devin Funchess is a really big loss to the Green Bay Packers. And I think that after Davante Adams, what do they have? They have Valdez-Scantling. Sorry, just one of those names that is fun. Lazard and Equimania St. Brown. Right?
Hearing you with the Montreal accent having to say some of these names is pure comedy.
English is still my first language though, so you can't hate on me too much for that. But I still think that Devin Funchess is a very underrated loss for the Green Bay Packers, given how they just, like I said, just didn't really address their wide receiver course. It's going to be the Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams show on offense. I mean, it already has been, but even more so. And if opposing defenses choose to triple cover Devontae Adams, well, who else are they're gonna throw to?
Yeah.
Mercedes Lewis, the tight end.
I
Aaron
don't
Jones
know
maybe in the
if he's
passing
still in
game as a check down option, but you don't really want that. Like, Aaron Jones is good, but he's not Christian McCaffrey, right? Like, I think.
You know what? Or the Chiefs. They're losing 2 starters as well. Damian Williams, Laurent Duvernay-Tardif.
But they're just so good. They still have Tyreek Hill. They still have Sammy
they're
Watkins.
gonna be
They have Patrick
amazing.
Mahomes. They're fine. Like, I wouldn't worry too much about the Chiefs,
No.
honestly.
It is still 2 starters though off the Super Bowl champs though.
And if anyone gets sick, I mean, God forbid,
Exactly.
Duvernay Tardif can help out. No, but no, God bless him. Honestly, I mean, he's from Montreal actually, so we can't, just huge respect for him. And he came.
Mm-hmm.
I think he played for McGill, right? And then he got drafted out of McGill as an offensive lineman in the 4th round. So it just shows how good he was in the Canadian University football leagues, right? So. Anyway, so let's talk about now the opt-out deadline in general. What do you think about the opt-out deadline?
Listen, I don't like the way
do you think there should be an opt-out deadline?
Yes and no, because obviously you don't want players like opting out, middle of training camp right before the season starts, and they're taking a step to avoid that. I don't like how they were like, yeah, it'll be fine as long as you don't like opt out. I think it was originally supposed to be like mid-August, and I was like, nope, Thursday. It's the moving up that doesn't exactly look good on the NFL's part. I understand why they did it. I just kind of don't like the way they went about it. I obviously think that again, you want protection from players opting out, quote unquote too late, but at the same time. It needed to happen. I just don't like the way that they went about it. You know what I mean?
And you could say that about a lot of things that the NFL does, unfortunately. But you know what? My answer to that is hard yes. There should absolutely be an opt-out deadline, because the same way that players, as mentioned before, have the full right to protect themselves and protect their families and friends and their loved ones, right? NFL coaches and front offices are in charge of running their team and their organization. They have the right to know which players are committed to their team and not committed to their team. There's already going to be a lot of uncertainty, because what if 1 or 5 or 20 players on a given roster test positive for COVID-19? How's the league going to react to that? We still don't know. I mean, I guess our best guess is that they're going to react the same way baseball's reacting. We'll cancel a few games, postpone a few games here and there, but even the fact that it's a week-to-week basis makes it that much more complicated. But again, the coaches and front offices deserve the right to know which players are committed to their organization and which ones are not. And I believe, like, you're right, they should have said long ago, right? This should have been part of the plan in returning to play amidst COVID-19, that the opt-out deadline is this day and it's going to stay that way. And it's not going to be Thursday, right? Like, it's not going to be August 20 and then all of a sudden be August 5, right? But yeah, just I strongly am in favor of the opt-out deadline, and just allows coaches the chance to know which of their players are going to be committed and not committed.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it like we said, it needed to happen. It just the moving up of that deadline is just not the greatest thing.
Mm-hmm. For sure. So I know that. I'm going to let you run the show here, Mike, because I know that you are you're probably more into college football than you are in the NFL, about the NFL, or as much, right?
Yeah, in recent years, it's gotten way more college for me than the pros, and that's just due to working jobs where I had to work one day and not the other, so I would always choose Saturday off to watch the draft.
Yeah, so there you go. So I want you to talk to me a little bit about. I'll let you just take over and talking about what the college football opt-outs mean, not just for the college football season, but for the upcoming NFL draft.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, first things first. I mean, all of the conferences are going Very, very different route than before. So gone right now is the traditional 12-game schedule. Depending on the conference, whether it be 8 conference games with 4 non-conference or 9 and 3. The most teams are having, or most conferences are having 9 or 10 in-conference games plus 1 non-conference games. They've forced Notre Dame to join the ACC this year so that Notre Dame doesn't, like the NCAA doesn't lose out on the cash cow that is Notre Dame football. So like there's a lot of change going across, but who knows what's going to happen? I mean, even since you and I talked last night about this, UConn canceled their season this year. University of Connecticut's not going to be playing this year. Rutgers had 28 positive COVID tests. 28 on a roster of 90. And that's a Big Ten school. So, I mean, travel is not going to make a whole hell of a lot of sense at this because none of the Power 5 conferences are really laid out well geographically. And then you have to think about even some of these smallest, conferences. There's word out of Colorado State that is like some truly detestable stuff in terms of what they're doing. Encouraging players to not, report COVID symptoms.
Bush League.
Yeah. Oh, it gets worse because their coach said that if a player is thinking about quarantine to stay safe, they're cut. Like, it's disgusting. And then, so there's already that. And then now we've got players opting out because I don't know if you've seen these. There was the player from LSU where he actually did like an Instagram live in the COVID safe helmet. And he said it was like breathing in a Ziploc bag.
So they're implementing COVID safe helmets, I guess, where they completely cover their face mask.
Complete face shield, and the kid was like, "I can't breathe. Like, I actually cannot breathe." And these kids are, and this wasn't like some 350-pound offensive lineman. This is a 225-pound defensive back linebacker. So, I mean, I can't imagine being one of these offensive linemen that's 350, 330, having to lug that around. It's like you're not gonna be able to breathe. It makes it even more dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of the opt-out, I mean, I'm well into my scouting for 2021, and Micah Parsons from Penn State, who's a guaranteed top 5 pick, already opted out. Caleb Farley, defensive back from Virginia Tech, likely first-round pick, opted out.
So that's my question. That's my question to you: is how do these players opting out affect their draft stock? Does it? Let's say if they had really good film from last year, does that necessarily guarantee them as a first-round pick or not?
Oh yeah.
So it's enough to solidify their spot in the draft board. Okay.
Yeah, I was going to go there. So like when you look at Micah Parsons, he's been a stud for Penn State since he stepped foot on campus as a true freshman. So he was great as a true freshman. If he came out last year, he probably could have pushed to be the first linebacker taken. Like, he was that good as a sophomore. And like there's nothing left he had to prove. He's 6'3", 6'4", 245. Do it all linebacker, drops well in coverage, rushes the passer. Like, what do you need him? What does he need to show? He's got nothing left. So it's getting to that point now where, I wouldn't be surprised if a Trevor Lawrence out of Clemson, declares, early, because this kid's been touted as a future number 1 overall pick since he was a senior in high school.
And the Patriots are going to tank for him and draft him first overall.
It's been talked about. Been talked about. And with, you look down the board, Penei Sewell, offensive tackle out of Oregon. There are over 100, 150 players on the Pac-12 that are basically trying to form a union of like mass opt-outs unless certain demands are taken care of, like next day or same day COVID testing, because right now that's not available to these kids. And their health benefits, if they're not going to the league, the moment they stop playing, they're on the hook for any medical bills. So they want that fixed. Like, you could see half of the starters from the Pac-12 just opt out. Some are going to the league, some aren't. But it's going to look very different this year regardless. But in terms of the draft, if you're getting preseason top 50 hype, you got nothing left to prove.
So you basically say that the season will be definitely more, like, season itself will be definitely more affected than the draft.
Oh yeah, the season is going to be more effective. There are instances where there are guys that are ranked highly right now based off of potential. Mm-hmm. One being, I'll give you an example. There's a defensive tackle at a University of Alabama, Christian Barmore. He was their third string defensive tackle last year, but in his limited snaps, he made such an impact. The question around him was going to be, well, in 2020, with him being a full-time guy, does he take that next step? So that would be one where it would affect it. But like if Micah Parsons or Rashad Bateman, who have already opted out and declared for the draft, you have a full year to just get your body in the best possible shape, keep yourself safe, and hey, there's no reason to run a slow 40 now. You've had a year to run for this.
Yeah, I mean, I guess from a physical standpoint, and a combine standpoint, like these guys, like they must be. There's no excuse for these guys to not be in fantastic shape. It's just more, I guess, on the football side of things, because as we all know, there's physical shape and football shape, right? Which we're going to find out about the state of these NFL players, right? How quickly they could get in football shape, right? And we can both make the case that football shape is the most difficult shape to get in compared to any other sport. Yes. We can both probably agree on that, right? So I guess that will be what's interesting to see, is how, even if these guys do opt out, right, and become, touted as a top first round pick, right, as a top 10 or top 20 whatever pick, right, skip a year of football as a 21-year-old, right, and then get drafted, but then maybe become a bust because they don't have that extra year of football under their belt.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to happen. I mean, the NFL draft is a complete crapshoot anyways.
That's why it's
surefire
so fun.
Prospect. Yeah, the surefire prospects miss more often than not. But, I mean, when you look at, like I said, the top guys, if you looked at, like, Trevor Lawrence, Micah Parsons, Jamar Chase, maybe Justin Fields is a bad example. But, like, some of these guys where, they've already got 2 full years of tape. Most teams have already kind of made up their mind on them. Like, they know where they are.
Yeah, so anyway, we're going to move along now. We're going to get back into the NFL, right? Just very interesting to see how that's going to play out. It's unfortunate about how, again, the way that the NCAA and the way these college coaching staffs are handling COVID-19 as it is it's just COVID sucks. That's the bottom line.
Yeah.
I think the NCAA already before had a lot of issues, even regardless of COVID-19. Just so many complicated rules and whatnot. So, but now with COVID-19, it's going to be interesting to see how that's going to affect the draft, and whether, going into the draft next year, players are going to get, again, scouted high and then get drafted and have more of a chance to bust. But anyway, that'll be interesting to see. But now I want to dive right into, get back to the fact that you're an Eagles fan, I'm a Cowboys fan, and we're going to debate some Cowboys-Eagles here on Langerr at the Mic Live. So
go for it.
Yeah. So first thing is let's compare our position groups here, and what do you think? Let's give your honest opinion as to why you think the Eagles are better than the Cowboys, and I will debate why the Cowboys are better than the Eagles from a pure football standpoint for this year.
I hate to be that guy, but I can't. I honestly can't argue. Listen, the Eagles, you and I can both agree that the NFC East last year was pathetic. All right? Neither team deserved to make the playoffs. I think we can agree on that.
But here's the thing, if I may, just
go for it.
Just so we're all very clear, because I hate how the national media you have Steve, maybe not so much Stephen A. He's a smart Cowboys hater, but you have, like, particularly Colin Cowherd, right? Oh, and yeah. Anyone that talks about and also what's the guy, the former quarterback of the Lions? I'm blanking on his name. Oh my God! Don't even get me started with Orlovsky.
I can't stand Orlovsky.
Because so the reason the Eagles were not as good last year was injuries. You guys took
no, and that is true.
Yeah, you guys took patio furniture and lawn chair to the playoffs last year.
Pretty much. Not a single healthy wide receiver or defensive back by the season's end.
Exactly. But people don't talk about the Cowboys. The biggest problem with the Cowboys was coaching.
Yeah.
And they addressed that this offseason in spades. So that being said, let's be very clear about that. Anyone that says the Cowboys are not are an 8-8 team because of last year and don't mention coaching is completely wrong and isn't worth arguing with. So just want to get that out of the way.
Over.
Yeah, carry on with what you're saying.
But, like, so again, if you want to go position by position, let's start at the quarterbacks. The you have Dak or you have Carson Wentz, and both are very good in their own rights. You could argue really either way that either of them is that fifth quarterback in the top five.
You also have Jalen Hurts. Just don't forget that.
That's a running back. I wasn't high on him as a quarterback, which made it even worse when they selected him in the second round. But if you compare Dak Prescott to Carson Wentz and their resumes, sure, Carson Wentz had a great 2017. Yeah. And then he got hurt, which, I mean, that was Nick Foles and the defense all through the playoffs. Carson Wentz has 0 playoff wins. Dak Prescott at least has 1. And if you want to talk about expectations, Carson Wentz was the second overall pick in 2016. The Eagles traded up from 15 to 8 to 2 to get him. Dak Prescott fell in the Cowboys' lap in the 4th round. All right, if it wasn't for a DUI like 2 weeks before the draft, he's not there in the 4th. He's gone in the 2nd. But there's a lot less expectations on Dak because he doesn't have as much. I mean, yes,
I disagree. I completely disagree because he's a Dallas Cowboys quarterback.
That if he was the quarterback for the Buffalo Bills at a 4th round pick, no one would be having it. Because he's the quarterback of America's team, it's a little bit different. But when you compare the two of them, Dak has had the most progression throughout his career. Dak in year 1 was hand the ball off to Zeke and do really the bare minimum to help that team succeed. Now we saw last year they relied on Dak to sling it for almost 5,000 yards.
100%. And yeah, carry on.
Yeah, so when you think about it, like Carson Wentz is still kind of in that 2017 mode, and then he's not really he can't stay healthy. He gets banged up every year. And like at times there are games where he costs them because he's not making the right decision. Dak generally is having to bring the rest of the offense with him. Dak has actually become a very good NFL quarterback, which annoys the crap out of me because after year 1, I swear he was going to be a terrible quarterback and that the only reason they were good was because of Zeke. He's progressed to the point where it's Dak's team and not Zeke. If you want to look at running back, you want to compare Ezekiel Elliott to Miles Sanders, it's not a discussion. It's Zeke.
Although I really like the way you guys use Miles Sanders. I think Miles Sanders definitely isn't Ezekiel Elliott, and I'm actually one to think that Ezekiel Elliott is one of the most overrated running backs in the NFL, believe it or not. Just because I could get to that later, but I just think that Zeke needs to be even better because you talked about expectation as a 4th overall pick and one of the highest paid running backs in the NFL. Zeke needs to be even better than he is right now, but we'll talk about that maybe in a bit. But right now, I want to point out that just again, Miles Sanders still is a weapon. He might not be in terms of carrying the ball, but in terms of receiving the ball, right? I really like the dynamic between Doug Peterson and Carson Wentz and Miles Sanders and any type of check down options. Like I find like you use the short passing game very effectively.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, again, I like Miles Sanders. I think Eagles fans are really overrating him right now because he did play well down the stretch last year. There are already people that are saying that he's in the realm of like a top 5 running back in the league, and that could not be more wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say
I saw that the other day and I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, like no, because he's more of a receiving back than a bell cow anyway, right? So
yeah.
But still a very effective receiving back in my opinion. I think that between between Miles Sanders and also Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert and your best tight end group in the NFL, just again the short and intermediate passing game is very effective for you guys. And also you did lose Marquise Goodwin to as an opt out for COVID, but you still have Alshon Jeffrey, you still have Jalen Reagor, you still have Deshaun Jackson, right? JJ Arcega Whiteside. Could he maybe make a couple of big plays? Maybe.
So
right?
let me speak on the Eagles wide receiver group for a minute. So
you know more than I do.
Obviously, this year the Eagles needed to focus a lot more on bringing in speed. All right, because it was a very slow. Even with Deshaun Jackson, he was injured. He's also in his mid 30s now. So as fast as he is, his best days are behind him. Arcega Whiteside was a non-factor at all last year.
I just thought he was a high draft pick or like a 3rd-round pick. No.
Yeah, he was a 2nd-round pick, but
2nd round.
he
Okay.
had he did like absolutely nothing. He had like 9 catches on the year.
Okay.
There were games where like he was the main target and he couldn't catch. He was a big-bodied, slow guy, which is not what they needed. Alshon Jeffrey, who has again slowed with age, he's still good, but it's not what it could be. Like he's not a team's number 1 anymore. So they really needed to address that in the draft, and they did. They got all of the speed in the world because I mean Jalen Reagor 4.3 something. I mean I know at the combine he ran like 4.4, like 4.44 or something like that. But Quez Watkins was like a ridiculous burner, like 4.3. They drafted all of these speed wide receivers. John Hightower as well was another one, like 4.3, 4.35 guy. The problem with all 3 of those guys is none of them can catch. All right, like none of them. So Jalen Reagor drew the most hate out of any draft pick in round 1 from me this past year. And it was because I watched him and he was a late 2nd-round pick, by my guessing. And the guy that I had been hoping the Eagles would get was still on the board because I wanted them to get Justin Jefferson. He can work in the slot, he can work outside, great route runner, and he had 4.4 speed.
He got drafted by the Vikings after
the next
Eagles,
pick,
right?
the very next pick. The very next pick. But I'm watching Jalen Reagor, and he'll never see this because Jalen Reagor has me blocked. Yeah. I'm blocked by like 3 members of the Eagles draft class this year. I think it's actually all 3 wide receivers. But Reagor was not a great route runner. He really had insanely inconsistent hands. And part of that was due to just terrible quarterback play at TCU. But some of them, they'd hit him right in the hands and you drop it. There's a clip that I pointed out like a couple days after the draft completed, and it was Jalen Reagor being just completely bodied by undrafted free agent Parnell Motley. And it was an entire game against Oklahoma where he couldn't get anything. He couldn't get any separation because Motley was going stride for stride with him, and he couldn't do anything against a UDFA. And that's someone you took at 22nd? It made no sense. I didn't like the pick. So I still think that they have the same – they've now gotten rid of the adage of they're slow. Now they're fast. But it's going to be 2nd and 10, 3rd and 10 a lot because these guys are going to drop a lot of passes.
So would you say that the best chance or the strength of the Eagles is probably your defense? If you look at Darius Slay, who you've added as in the secondary, still have Fletcher Cox, still have Brandon Graham, still have Derek Barnett and Javon Hargrave. Would you say the defense is stronger than the offense at this point?
Absolutely. Okay. I think the defense has been really good ever since that Super Bowl year. The secondary has been really rough because, again, health concerns. Guys like Rasul Douglas can't really stay healthy. We've seen Sidney Jones, who was like my number 5 overall player of the year. He came out. He's barely been able to put together a full season. Jalen Mills having to play outside corner is almost guaranteed points.
Is Jalen Mills going to play safety this year?
He's going to be a backup safety. He's going to take over for Malcolm Jenkins. But that'll be better. But I'm not sure. Like I've never really been sold on Jalen Mills as in terms of his NFL ceiling. I always kind of figured he'd be kind of like that, rotational guy or like a borderline starter, and he's proven to be that. But bringing in Darius Slay, who really had a down year last year, all things considered with the Lions. I think part of that is he really just wanted to get out of town. He was fed up having to play for Matt Patricia, who didn't know how to use him. Hopefully Jim Schwartz will be able to utilize his strengths a lot better, and it at least gives them some help on the back end. The back end was always the struggle with the Eagles because out wide, the corners were being swapped in and out every week, whereas in the center, they still had Malcolm Jenkins and they still had Rodney McLeod. But up front, the Eagles are like 8 deep on the defensive line. Hargrave, Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham, Malik Jackson. Like they're absolutely loaded to the point where the second level, the linebackers don't have to be as good. I couldn't name you the starting linebackers for the Eagles right now. Like Jordan Hicks is gone, Nigel Bradham's gone. I know Nate Gary is going to be one of them, but I can't remember the other 2 linebackers we got.
Yeah, Jatavis Brown, Alex Singleton. I have your depth chart right in front of me. I cheated a little bit.
Alex Singleton, Calgary Stampeder. That's the old, yeah, like him or Davion Taylor, who was a third round pick that I didn't like this year because, well, he's rawer than sushi. Like, he's really fast, but he needs like 3 years of coaching in order to hit an NFL field.
I still think the fact the Eagles are just, you found a way the last couple of years. That's the bottom
Yeah.
line. Like the Eagles have found a way, right? Whereas the Cowboys now, I think that the Cowboys with our new coaching staff, I fully believe in the coaching staff until I'll be naive. I'll even be naive in my belief of this coaching staff because I really think they're the real deal. Because compared to what we've seen the last couple of years with the Cowboys and they're playing the same Tampa 2 or same single high and it wasn't cover, it was cover 3, right? Same cover 3 on every single defensive snap. The same 3 tight ends, 12 personnel on offense, running into 8-man boxes with Zeke, right? Like I think all that's going to change. I think that's going to be fantastic for this team. I think it's going to be fantastic for this team because now Mike McCarthy is going to throw the ball more with CeeDee Lamb, who you guys didn't get. Haha. We got Clinton Dix also. I mean, just wanted to make a nice little segue there, but
yeah, that was a really good one.
but yeah, just the Cowboys right now got a little bit weaker on defense from a personnel standpoint, at least in the secondary with the loss of Byron Jones. But right now, having drafted Trayvon Diggs, I thought Trayvon Diggs could have. Wait, do you think Trayvon Diggs could have been a first-round pick in your draft expert mind?
Well, actually, I can pull up my big board from last year, and I can tell you exactly where I had him. So Trayvon Diggs, I had as the 6th overall corner. I think he was like the 8th or 9th taken, because corners just flew off the board this year. Trayvon Diggs, though, came in at God, now I can't even find him.
It's okay because I think Trayvon Diggs
he went in around where I expected him to go. I had him 43rd, so I actually had your 3rd round pick.
Neville Gallimore
Neville Gallimore, Ottawa's own. I had him 30th. So the fact that you guys got him in like the 80s annoyed the crap out of me because I was actually texting with Eric Edholm of Yahoo Sports. I'm like, dude, why isn't Neville Gallimore taken? Like, I'm seeing guys that are like way, way lower on most people's boards. Like, there's the kid Hamilton, the defensive tackle from
Justin Hamilton. No.
No, it's gonna drive me nuts now.
That's okay. Don't worry about it.
Devon Hamilton.
Devon Hamilton. Yes, gotcha.
Yeah. And I'm like, why is Devon Hamilton going like before Neville Gallimore? And he goes, I don't know. And then as soon as he sent that text, it was like, oh, great, the Cowboys got him. Wonderful. Now, I've reached out to Neville because I've spoken with him. He's a wonderful dude. He's going to be a great player.
He looks like a guy that smiles a lot also, which is cool.
He does. He's a great guy to talk to. I reached out to him like, I know you're going to kill it. I hate the team you went to.
Because like I said, that's our front office, that's our coaching staff. We're not drafting Tristan Hills or Taco Charltons anymore. We're drafting best player available from now on, right?
I miss those days when you guys did that.
I don't at all, but yeah, it's just very exciting times as as a Cowboys fan, of course, new coaching staff and all that. And I'm hoping that I hope that your honest and objective take as an Eagles fan is absolutely right. That the Eagles aren't gonna really outplay the Cowboys anywhere here, and that's why I just honestly look. And you know what? If you guys were better, I would not mind talking about that, right? But I love getting the honest and objective opinion of rival fans, and also, like I said, I like to be objective and honest about my rival teams as well. But honestly, Mike, it was great to have you on the show today. But we're gonna end with some prediction time. Right now, we're going to predict. What do you think will be the records of our NFC East teams this year?
I don't know. Like, I can give you like a ballpark range. I'm not sure if I can give you like the exact.
Give me the exact one. Give me the exact one. I don't want ballparks. It's too easy. Give me something exact.
All right. I think coming in last place at 3-13 is going to be the Washington football team. They have no offensive line protection for Dwayne Haskins whatsoever. They have the same situation that the Chargers have, and the same situation that the Jets have, and that they have young quarterbacks with absolutely garbage offensive lines in front of them. They're going to be starting 4th-round pick Sadiq Charles, and that scares me if I'm a young quarterback. Darius Geis, who knows if he's going to be able to stay healthy. He hasn't really been able to do so far. I like Terry McLaurin. I like Chase Young. I don't really like anything else on that team. I like Ron Rivera as a coach. I also really don't like the Washington football. It's still weird saying that.
Yeah, I know. By nature, I feel like I'm going to say Washington Redskins, but I think Ron Rivera is worth at least one more win for that team, honestly, because Ron Rivera, I don't understand why he got fired out of Carolina. I guess he just wore out his welcome there, but Ron Rivera to me is worth one extra win for that team. So that's why I'd have them at 4-12, not 3-13.
Okay. I think in second place, you have to talk about the New York Giants. I think they're probably...
You mean third place?
Did I say second?
Yeah, third place.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
You're going back. We're going from the bottom up here.
Yeah, so in third place, it's going to be the New York Giants. They're probably 6-10. Daniel Jones is okay. He won't win them many games, but he probably won't lose them a ton of games either. I think a fully healthy Saquon Barkley is going to help. You can't... The biggest obstacle for the Giants is
Jason
in their
Garrett.
front office.
And front office.
Yeah, that's true. And the front office. I mean, Dave Gettleman is going to get in his own way more often than not. But I
don't understand the plan for that franchise. I really don't.
No,
I mean, it's fun. As NFC East rivals of the Giants, it's so fun to just watch them like have no idea what the heck they're doing. Mm-hmm. Like, I think that I just think they're going to be terrible offensively this year. I mean, sure, Saquon will be Saquon. I mean, he's either a 2-yard per carry guy, but then he adds a 50-yard run or a 70-yard runs to bring up his stats. He's still one of the best running backs in the NFL, and I think he's actually I would have him ahead of Zeke, and I think that offense is going to run through Saquon Barkley, and if Saquon Barkley isn't doing anything, then they're just going to keep running into 8-man, 9-man boxes, and that's going to be that offensively.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially with Jason Garrett being their offensive coordinator.
Yeah, oh boy. Yeah. I think second place is going to be the Eagles. I think that both of the top two teams are going to be, at very least, contenders. I think both have a chance at squeaking into the playoffs. The Eagles, I mean, again, riding off the strength of that defense, hopefully Carson Wentz can stay healthy this year, and maybe the wide receivers can prove me wrong. But if not, he's still got Sanders to throw to, and he's still got the best tight end tandem, including, really, I think Zach Ertz is one of the most slept-on players in the NFL because, yes, he's not George Kittle. He's not George Kittle. He's not Travis Kelce, but he's the third best tight end in the NFL. And after that, there's a pretty decent cliff.
I guess you could call him the Michael Thomas of tight ends, just a volume catcher,
much.
15 catches a game for 150 yards and 2 touchdowns or whatever, right? Just volume catcher.
Yeah, but I still think that that's going to be enough to, hey, if the Eagles can hold teams under 24 points, I think they have a chance in a lot of games. So I think the Eagles are probably going to be the second place team, 9-7, 10-6.
Well, which one, 9-7 or 10-6?
Let's go 10-6. Let's go 10-6.
Fair. And then where do you have my Dallas Cowboys at? What's the Dallas Cowboys record?
You're gonna hate me for this. I think they're also gonna go 10-6, but they're gonna win the tiebreaker.
Fair.
I think they probably. I think they probably are able to go 2-0 against the Eagles, finish with the same record, get the tiebreaker. They're in.
Because I'd say the biggest obstacle for the Cowboys, honestly, is I know I said I totally believe in this coaching staff, but I just think that the unfortunate situation with COVID-19 could play in as a factor between the coaching staff's ability to get the Cowboys playing into the new system. I think that's the biggest threat to the Dallas Cowboys right now, I believe.
For sure.
So, but I still have I can sort of I'm a little bit off compared to your predictions. I would say the Redskins do go 4-12 because again Ron Rivera is worth an extra win for that team, even though you're right, they have no offensive, they have nothing except Terry McLaurin and that's pretty much it, right?
Yeah.
Right? That's their biggest offensive
threat. Their defense is going to be good. But their defensive line
yeah, they do have a good defensive line. I'll give them that. And they have a defensive coach for that as well. So Redskins 4-12. I say Giants 5-11. They could also be 4-12, but let's just say 5-11 because they're just a little bit better than the Redskins, but still. You know, I'm going to say 4-12. I'm going to say 4-12. Okay. Giants 4-12. Redskins, Giants 4-12. Eagles 9-7. I have the Eagles at 9-7. You guys are still.
I can respect that. Yeah.
Still a contender in this in the NFL. You know, still have still the Eagles will lose games that they should win, and they'll win games that they should lose.
Yeah,
They'll go on
that
the road
happens
and
every year.
beat. They'll go on the road and beat a Green Bay or make the Saints, give the Saints a run for their money, but then they'll lose at home to the Lions or like
Yeah.
what division we play again this year? It's like they'll lose at home to the Cardinals type of thing.
Yeah.
Or they'll lose at home. I think we play the AFC North, so they'll lose like to the Browns at home or something.
Yeah, it's the AFC North and the NFC West.
Yeah, that's who we play this year. So anyway, Eagles 9-7, Cowboys. I'm staying strong at 11-5 for the Cowboys. I really think that the Cowboys will go 11-5. Also, if you consider the fact that if a lot of games are going to be played with either little or no fans, that means that playing at Seattle for the Cowboys isn't going to be as bad of a matchup compared to if there are fans, if there is a 12th man. But if there isn't going to be a 12th man, I think that's a good matchup for the Cowboys in Seattle. Obviously, still have Russell Wilson, but that's a lot more favorable. So I think the Cowboys, given that we don't rely as much on our home field advantage because the home field advantage at AT&T Stadium isn't very good, in my opinion. I still think that the home versus away, whatever split, isn't going to matter as much, and I think the Cowboys are good for 11 wins guaranteed this year.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's it. That's our show. It was an hour exactly on the money, and that was a lot of fun. Honestly, it just flew by, in my opinion. Thanks so much, Mike, for joining our show here.
Absolutely.
Yep, and again, I look forward to you being a regular on the show. We'll be in touch with that. But hey, thanks for watching this live episode of Langerr at the Mic. Stay tuned for Habs versus Penguins tonight. If you like what you saw, give us a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel here, and give us a follow on Instagram at Mike Langerr and Twitter at Mike Langerr. And once again, thank you for watching. I look forward to you guys being here at the next episode of Langerr at the Mic. And thanks again, Mike, for joining us.
Anytime, man.